Hi, this is Lance Hood, and welcome to Better Businesses, where you can meet and learn from some of the very best and fastest growing companies. While the shift towards having open office spaces has created a positive increase in collaboration between coworkers, it has also created a lot of distraction. Despite all the benefits, people still need a quiet, private place to make phone and conference calls without worrying about coworkers listening in or distracting background noises. So today, we'll be talking with CubiCall, one of the leaders in creating the modern phone booths for offices. They're producing phone booths for Fortune 100 companies all the way down to young startups with limited budgets and limited space. In fact, they were recently featured in Forbes. Today's guest speaker is CubiCall's co-founder, Anthony Pucci. Anthony, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Lance. Happy to be here.
Well, can you take a minute and tell everyone a little bit about yourself and how CubiCall got started?
Yeah. Obviously, as you mentioned before, I'm one of the co-founders, and we actually originally were a marketing agency for launching new brands and products on the luxury side. And we moved into a creative open office space, and one of the biggest problems that we were having was during our phone calls or our sales pitches, people were passing notes back and forth to each other, especially to the person on the phone call, on how to handle the call, and it became super distracting and very irritating. So we began looking for phone booth solutions, and what we found was either super expensive, or we even came up with the idea of let's just buy an old phone booth, from the 80s, which became cost prohibitive for us for a couple of reasons. One, it was just too big, and two, they're quite expensive and they don't really accomplish the needs. And we realized we could make one ourselves. We know how to make it better and fit our needs. So we built it for our office. And once we installed it, we were part of like a co-working space. Other companies came and said, "Can you build one of those for us?" And so we just started building one-offs for everybody throughout the office, and then realized, hey, we might actually have a product that we could move forward with. And that's kind of in a quick nutshell how we started.
Very cool. Well, Anthony, let's just really go a little deeper and talk about what CubiCall does and why it's important.
So what we do is we help limit the distractions in open office spaces. And if you're not familiar with the term of open office or creative offices, this is an area where more people are fitted into a large room. So there's either a group of desks where 4 to 10 people all sit together, and their they use their computers and they take their phone calls there. In some other offices, you'll have a much larger open office space with much more people. Nobody really has an individual office anymore. And if there's closed off rooms, they're usually conference rooms that have to be booked way in advance. So what our product does, it allows people to take a call quickly in a small room to avoid all the distractions for their call, and also not to distract other people around them.
Yeah, I tell you, I went and once I first heard about this from somebody who is part of an open office, and they went and bought some of these, we just called them privacy pods, but they are a modern phone booth. Once I heard about it, I started doing research, and I got extremely excited, and I actually went and I bought my own CubiCall booth because I like to work from a home office when possible, and it was important to me to be able to walk in any time of day and have a quiet place to handle a phone call or a conference call. And so it just made complete sense, and I really appreciate it. Can you tell everybody a little bit about the actual how sound reduction works and how the sound reduction works in CubiCalls?
Yeah, so this gets a little complicated and scientific, and if you do a little research, it gets a little confusing because there's two ways to measure, let's say, just kind of soundproof or acousticness. So there's a thing called the STC rating, and then there's a thing called the NRC rating. NRC is about how sound is absorbed, while STC measures how sound is transmitted between two spaces. So a lot of the materials that we use in our booth are STC rated as well as NRC. So what that quickly means is when you're talking in a booth, an NRC rating measures the amount of low frequencies, mid to low frequencies it absorbs, which is generally your voices. So the materials that we use inside the booth do a lot of absorbing of sound, so it doesn't escape the booth. And a lot of the materials that we use on the outside of the booth are STC rated, which means is it stops noise from transferring through the materials or into the materials and into the booth. And our ratings, we reduce, which is the STC rating, is about 30 decibels. And when you think 30, it sounds like a big number, but when you're reducing based upon that, it's a much higher power. So it's not really a step of one. It's really a much larger step of the reduction of, noise frequencies. So to kind of give you a quick idea is, when you close your office door, if you were in an office, the conversation would be to a low murmur to an inaudible. Like you'll be able to pick up every other word instead of hearing everything very clearly.
So having the sound reduction, I was just thinking about, for me, it was not necessarily about blocking people from listening in, but it was blocking outside noises. But I could see how, I can see this intimately, how having this private place, whether you're in an office, in any range of different offices, could increase productivity, not wasting time, not getting distracted, not worrying about the distractions of not having that privacy. Are you guys familiar with that? Can you talk on that a little bit?
Yeah, so, with the research that we've done, we found that within about 70% of office space in the United States is this open creative office area. And about 86 minutes a month is lost to distractions. And what that ends up equating to on average is employees are about, you're losing about $705 per month with these distractions that are happening within these creative offices. So the booth is there to help recoup that lost, distraction, and to recoup those lost minutes and some of those lost dollars.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can see that if somebody had to make a whole bunch of calls, they certainly don't want to have a lot of background noise in the background while they're talking with potential clients. Let me ask you, what types of companies are using CubiCall booths?
This is one of my favorite questions when people ask me this, because when we ended up deciding to go to market with this booth, we were going after small companies like us, where they just needed a booth just to solve this problem so they could handle the calls efficiently and be able to grow with the product, or if they decide to move offices, there was something that was easy to move into a new space with them. And when we first launched, we were really surprised about the Fortune 500 and 100 companies that started contacting us. I mean, they were never really on our radar. We just figured they have a much bigger spending, they have a much more larger real estate budget, that they'll go with the main big expensive players, so they wouldn't be interested in what we do. But it's been really amazing, and we see multiple unit purchases. So we went from thinking we're just going to sell to the small business community, selling one booth, to now we're selling to large corporations, and we're selling 5 to 10 units at a time.
Mm-hmm. Well, this actually makes me think about one thing that I love to talk about, which is changes that people see in the economy, changes they're seeing with customers or technology. What have you noticed with these changes, and what do you think we should all be aware of? And how does that affect CubiCall booth?
Yeah, I think in a general sense, I see 3 major things happening in, let's say, the business environment. The biggest being number one is the change in taxing, where it allows companies to make more purchases and be able to write them off quicker than doing the normal depreciation, which I think is going to spur a lot of purchasing in the coming years for companies to buy things that they need to become more efficient and more effective, because the realization of savings and the increasing of productivity, which also increases more output from employees and from manufacturing in a general sense, is realized much faster than over an extended period of time. The second thing that I see changing is that even though I don't like to use this term so much because it's so easy to use, is millennials no longer want to live in the suburbs. So you're seeing a big shift of everybody moving back into the cities. So not only do you see that with millennials, but you also see that with the older population because they enjoy being close to where the action is. They enjoy being able to walk, being able to have everything within a couple blocks radiuses, rather than getting in a car to drive. And you're seeing major corporations embrace this as well with the recent move of McDonald's back to downtown Chicago and even Caterpillar moving out of the suburbs, moving back into into a downtown setting as well, which is now causing all these, if you go to any major city, you're seeing a lot of development, and that's because of this influx of people coming back to the city, businesses coming back to the city, which is creating a much bigger demand for real estate.
Right, which means you need to find creative ways to put more people in the same space, which if you do that means you have to have a space for those people to get some privacy at the same time.
Exactly. And it's a big thing that people are trying to go through, and it's an evolving process, which we see. I mean, we even done it as a company ourselves. We all had our individual offices. We wanted to be closer in the city, so we had to make sacrifices and changes in order to be a part of that culture, which I think everybody wants to be a part in doing.
Mm-hmm. So what makes CubiCall different from similar companies? Because there are other companies that do make booths.
Yeah, so two of the biggest things that I think really differentiate us. I think there's a lot of companies out there that make great booths. I think they all address the same problem. And now what makes us unique, very first off, is that we have a bifold door. When you move into a creative space, you're already limited, or this open office concept, you're already limited in space. So the last thing you want to do is put another object which takes up more space than it tends to. So our booth has a very small footprint, so which allows people to put in more units without sacrificing space. And the second thing is,
one thing on that, Anthony, if I was to have a comment on that, when I did my research into this market, I noticed that you guys also, though, had one of the best internal footprints, meaning that the important part is when you're inside of it, the actual internal dimensions are actually, in many cases, much larger, and which I liked. But also the bifold doors. Most people, I think, would think that maybe a bifold door might somehow be less soundproof. How do your doors work?
Yeah, so I mean, there's always a common misconception, where the door is where you lose most of the sound. It's really how you absorb the sound. And our doors are actually double pane insulated glass. So it's a very tight, with also the combination of the absorbing materials inside the booth. That's where you really get your true acoustical or your reduction in sound. Not always necessarily the door is the end all be all. But you do make a great point. Our booths, there is enough room for you to sit, stand, and sometimes if you like to walk around, you could shift. You're not stuck in this tiny little closet that you're forced to be in one position at all times.
And I do like that too, is that what I saw with a lot of booths was this, is that you can either stand or use like a bar stool, or you were forced to kind of sit down. This is one of the rare opportunities where I've seen that you can actually sit or stand. Because sometimes if you're on a long call or something, you might want to stand up, but I don't know if I would want to sit on a bar stool for a very long period of time. It might not be as comfortable. So I like what you have there.
And I tend to happen to be an animated talker too, so I need room so my hands and body can move so I could really feel that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
The second biggest thing that sets us apart is we're fully customizable. So from the outside to the inside, the end user gets to pick the colors, the materials, everything they want inside the booth. It's not just option A or option B. This is really tailored to your space, to your company, to your brand, and to your personality.
Mm-hmm. And the one thing is when I did it and I picked mine out, I customized all the colors. I mean, every component has a color that you can customize. And I did that with your 3D builder, so I could actually see exactly what it's going to look like. I could change the colors and look at it in real time. That was very cool.
Yeah,
So,
you could get lost in there quickly.
you could lose a lot of time. I could see how that would cause people to want to have an extra booth, like, oh, well, we'd like one in red.
Yeah.
But, one of the other things that I noticed that stood out, and because I really did spend a lot of time doing this research before I contacted you guys, and what I noticed was for lighting, in a lot of scenarios, there's either no internal lighting or there's a very small token LED light. I didn't see really, there may have been one other option, but I didn't see really any other options where you could have a full lit up space so that you could truly see. Because one of the things I wanted the ability to do was not just make phone calls, but the potential to have it also be a conference or webinar room. So I got our booth with the writable walls, so I could take one of the acoustic panels off and use dry erase markers on the inside, so it could actually be a webinar type writable space, and then it would have full lighting, which you really thought a lot of this stuff through.
And I'm also glad that you brought that up too, because our booths are priced with all of that included. This isn't, you're not like buying the booth and then, oh, you want a desk, oh, you want a seat, oh, and you want lights. All right. No, the prices, it includes everything and the customization. And also that was one of the biggest things for us too is, not everybody's on a phone call. They're doing a Skype or they're doing a video conference. So we wanted that room to be bright enough so that you're coming through clear on your video conference feed as opposed to being in a dimly lit, section of the office.
Mm-hmm. No, I really think that you've really thought it through. I spent many hours doing this research, and I think that you've nailed it. So, do you have any actual stories of people who have purchased the booths? Just curious.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of goes back to where what we started talking about in the beginning is, a lot of startups and tech firms purchase our booth. And we've done a lot of installs in San Francisco. And if anybody's familiar with San Francisco, real estate pricings are out of control there. So a lot of companies are forced to be in these small areas, back to the whole creative office. And we had a company that they're a tech firm, but they're mostly consultants, and they're always on the phone. Either they're doing a Skype call, a telephone call, or a video conference, but they always can't be in this open office space. So we installed a bank of booths for them. And the funny thing is every time we were there installing, as soon as we finished installing one booth, they hurried up and started using it again. And even got to the point where one of the other co-founders of the company has commandeered one of the booths to make it his own little private office because he's just so frequently on the phone or on Skype, talking with customers.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you this. I could see how if you had somebody who was working at their desk and doing a whole lot of like writing code or whatnot, that it would help them to not be as distracted. I could see that having that, not just that sound, but having some of the periphery busyness taken away would be very helpful. What benefits do you see people having taking action now versus waiting? Is there any benefit to getting a booth, or should I just wait until I think I need one?
Yeah, I mean, besides the other benefits for is of increasing productivity and adding some sort of normalcy back to your employees' lives, where they don't have to go out in the hallway to take a call. They could just quickly step into a booth. We do from time to time also increase the quality and increase the products and materials that we do offer inside the booth. So we do have price increasing, which will be coming up shortly. But so you'll be able to take advantage of our pricing now, but also for your listeners, we like to give a special 5% discount. We don't offer really discounts anywhere. So 5% is going to be the best pricing that you'll be able to receive on our booth, and it's only available through your listeners.
And also, you told me that if people wanted their logo or the wood veneers, that you would include that at no cost. So there's truly no additional pricing. It's the best, not only the best price, but you're not charging for any of this customization with using their existing logo or adding the more expensive veneers, correct?
Correct.
Also, you guys have it available to where if they wanted to make payments, that's already on the site. It can already be set up, so they don't have to worry about paying for it all at once. That's an option too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're willing to work pretty much any way with the customer. Financing is a great thing. And what's nice about the financing, it's very low payments, so it's better than a leasing term. And at the end of the day, you actually own the booth as opposed to having to return it later. And so you actually will be investing into the booth itself and not just renting space.
Well, and then and then if somebody, for some reason, we will have a link right here below the video where you can go through and you'll make sure that you get the best pricing. But if they're unsure if they did, they can just mention Better Businesses when they make the purchase, and then they're guaranteed to get your lowest price.
Exactly, yeah. Or even if they call in and they want to request a more formal quote from us, as long as they mention, as you said, we'll honor that as well. Okay.
How long does it take for people to get a booth?
Yeah, so usually from confirmation of your order and payment, not necessarily that we have to receive the money at the time, but we just need to confirm payment. It takes 10 business days to produce it and up to 7 business days for shipment. So you're looking from about 14 to 17 days till you have it in hand.
Right, and it's because you're in California, so if they're clear on the East Coast, it might take a couple extra days, but if they're in California, the ship time wouldn't take that long.
Exactly, yeah. And that's another great point I forgot to mention. Everything is made here in the USA. So it is made here in Los Angeles. It's all assembled. You know, we build it all first before it ships out to you to make sure everything fits properly, and then it's shipped off.
Well, I guess I was just going to ask, do you have any other customer experiences that you want to share with anybody before we go?
Like we said before, is the amount of people that are actually buying in multiples. We had another company in New York that was a marketing firm that was experiencing the same problem, that purchased 3 units and they want them rushed, and we rushed them out there. We even actually did the install for them. And we constantly get calls from them saying, we don't know where we were without this, because they were all fighting for conference space. Now this has freed up a lot more room for them, and they're just able to do their jobs much more efficiently than they did before.
Well, I can tell you that not having a quiet space to hold phone and conferences has driven me nuts for many years. And the second I knew that this type of product existed, it was all consuming for about 2 weeks until I researched everybody, and I ended up buying my own CubiCall booth. And as you know, I was harassing you if there's any way to get it sooner. So
yeah, we're still working on it. We're still trying to find a way to get there faster.
Yeah. So I'm definitely happy with everything you guys have. So I just want to encourage everybody, go ahead and if you think that this is something that would help out your office, feel free to reach out to CubiCall booth. You can click through and use the builder and see what it would look like. They were featured in Forbes because they really have some amazing designs for a great price. And they'll even have like the Van Gogh designs and stuff.
Yeah, we even have the capability of producing full-on wall graphics of images of fine works of art, if that's your style.
Well, very cool. Well, Anthony, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Excellent, Lance. Thanks. I appreciate your time, too.